This video is rated T, or Tickle Me Pink. What's going on, shitheads? Tickle Me Pink here, your least favorite content creator. Today, I thought we would do a tier list on every single weapon in Escape from Tarkov. So, what are we looking for with the weapons here? So, obviously, how expensive are they? How easy can we get our hands on them? What sort of ammunition can we chamber through them? How effective they are in PvP, as well as on a broader spectrum, how effective they are in a vast array of maps, right? You're not going to have a good time taking a sniper rifle to factory per se. So we're going to touch base on all of those. Some weapons we're going to have a lot to talk about, like you can use them in budget formats as well as high-end formats, and maybe a certain weapon will take an entire minute to talk about, or another weapon might just go straight into the D tier and we're gonna move on. If you haven't been to the channel, I have 9,000 hours in Tarkov, I have 18 KD, and I was an FPS professional player at one point in my life. So I'm not just some random guy. You can trust this tier list to an extent. On the flip side of the spectrum, I have 2 available brain cells, so if you disagree with where I put anything on the tier list, tell me why in the comments down below. But let's begin. I just want to quickly thank the sponsor of today's video, HelloFresh. Before we go any farther, I actually signed a contract with them where I have boxes to give out to you guys. If you've never had HelloFresh and you live in the US, I can get you guys free food this week. Just go ahead and shoot me a message on Discord. Tell me you're interested in the HelloFresh deal. I also get paid when I give you guys free groceries, so go ahead and get in contact with me. You're doing me a favor. I'm doing you a favor. Let's continue with the video. All right, first and foremost, we have the 300 Blackout. Now, 300 Blackout is going to go ahead and just go straight into the S tier. Now, the reason for that is you can get it at 15 on the flea market for 40k. You can get very fleshy ammunition. You can shoot an extremely high rate of fire at level 15 right away. The ammunition, the high-end ammunition, like M62 Tracer, as well as CBJ, is also on the flea market for very reasonable prices. I mean, CBJ outclasses 855 and by all means sits somewhere between M80 and 855A1. It's a very strong round, a lot of penetration power, a lot of stopping power, a lot of flesh damage, a high fragmentation chance. It's a scary rifle. I mean, you can go ahead and mod it out a ton and get it to be an absolute laser beam with high tier armor piercing ammunition, or you can run it pretty low modded with low tier ammunition. It's just an effective weapon all the way around. As soon as you have access to this on the flea market level 15, go ahead and use it. It's a really fun weapon and it's going to stay extremely viable all the way until you're max level traders. After this, we have the ADAR. So this is going to be a little bit of a personal preference for those of you, that have an affinity to going ahead and hitting headshots. The ADAR can be really nice. I mean, you get access to it at an extremely low level. Before level 15, you can go ahead and just tap heads with the ADAR. You can also just change out all the furniture, turn it into an M4. It's a lovely weapon, honestly, but not a lot of people are going to like it, and it's not going to shine towards the end game. So for that reason, we're going to go ahead and move it towards the C tier. But for your early on gameplay, let's say, I don't know, around to level 2 traders, maybe pushing to level 3 when you're doing things like killing scavs on shoreline, wearing UN armor and using an M4 or ADAR, this weapon can shine, right? But I just don't think you're going to want to go ahead and run a semi-automatic 5.56 right now with the plate changes, as plates are stopping a lot of 5.56. Additionally, you're not going to be getting 5.6A1 until later on, and it's a tracer round, which just really doesn't shine with a DMR. It's not D tier. You're going to have to click heads, but it's just not as good as it has been historically. All right, here we have the 7.62 AK-103. So 7.62 is just not feeling very viable right now. Like the Mutant, the RD, the AKM, they're just not feeling great at a high level. At an early level, when you're shooting PS out of this thing, it's all right, but it still has like a lot of, I don't want to say it has kicks. You don't really have to pull down on it, but it has like a lot of camera kick. Like it's bouncing left to right quite a lot, which you can't really help. Sure, you can tap with this thing, but it's not that great at mid-range and full automatic, and it's also not the best up close. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and put it in C tier with the ADAR. It's also a little bit of a pain in the ass to effectively modify at a low level. It doesn't really stand out, right? If you want to run a high-end 7.62 rifle, you're going to run something like the RD or the Mutant. If you want to run something a little bit lower end, you're going to run something like the AKM. It's kind of in a weird stage right there. It's going through like its teenage years right now. And on the same token, we have the AK-104 right here. And the AK-104 is the carbine 7.62 variation. It's just a flat out worse version of the AK-103 in my opinion. It doesn't really you are getting a shorter length barrel, sure, but this weapon doesn't really have any issues with indexing to begin with. And indexing, if you don't know, is like if you have your gun up along a wall and you poke it in, it crosses your shoulder and goes across to your other arm. You know what I'm saying? So you're not, pointing it in the direction you need to look. It's just not worth the added recoil you're going to get in this situation, and you'll also get less attachments with this. Up next, we have the AK-105. It's like a carbine, a 5.45. It's very much like these two weapons. I'm going to go ahead and say it's C tier, maybe B tier. It does shoot 5.45, and 5.45 feels a lot better than 7.62. It for sure feels better than the 7.62 variation, so maybe it's higher in C tier, but once again, it's just not feeling great. AKs this wipe, I mean, they have a low fire rate. 7.62 ammunition is not feeling great. 5.45 feels all right. However, you can't really get your hands on high-end 5.45 consistently, and things like PP are kind of locked behind higher level traders for some reason. So for those reasons, 5.45 and 7.62 just aren't really shining. A problem a lot of the AKs have is they all kind of feel the same, and I mean, that does make sense. They're all kind of based off the same design. I mean, the Kalashnikov design worked for a long time, and they just continue to just like slightly adjust it to their needs and try and make it better. And we look today at like the AK-12, which has tons of problems, and they still want to go back to like that standard just AK-74 platform. So it makes sense why they don't feel tremendously different. But next we have the RPK. So by all intents and purposes, this should feel quite a little bit different than the other AKs. You know, it's supposed to be a machine gun, but effectively in the game, it just feels like a 5.45 AK-74. I would say it feels a little bit better than these other weapons. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in B tier. It is a little expensive on the flea market, around like 80k, but you can do some barters to get it for a little bit cheaper. One weapon that you're gonna think is weird for me to go ahead and put a little bit higher than I am in the rest of these weapons is the SAG AK-545, and this is actually the short barrel variation. And I'm gonna recommend the short barrel variation. It's very snappy. You can ADS this weapon faster than any other weapon in the game as far as I've tested so far. It snaps onto your enemies so fast. You get the short barrel so you don't index it because it has plenty of MOA, you have plenty of accuracy already. You can throw a few attachments on this thing, and if you can click some heads and you have maybe some 5.45 BP at a very low level, you can just disintegrate any player you see. I love trying it with between a 2 to 4x optic, which you guys might think is a little bit weird. I'm not using this necessarily as a sniper rifle, more like a DMR, if you will, like a short range DMR. But for that reason, we're gonna put the SAG stubby in A tier. You guys might think that's crazy because it's a semi-automatic weapon, but give it a try. Honestly, if you're a new player, you might think this EST list is stupid. Give this weapon a try. If you can click heads, it's gonna feel phenomenal. Don't forget to smash the dislike button and tell me to kill myself in the comments down below. Let's get to the next weapon. Up next, we have the AK-74. By all accounts, you can mod this to be like the best automatic 5.45 or one of the best. So for that reason, we're just gonna put it in the top of B tier right over the RPK. Not a whole lot to say about this weapon. I keep getting dailies to kill people with it. It's nice, but it's also not the best. Like, you don't want to use it all the way at end game when you have access to other things. Right now, rate of fire feels kind of like king in this meta because headshots are so valuable with plate stopping rounds. And the bounciness of this weapon right now makes it kind of hard to hit headshots, and the low rate of fire obviously goes ahead and knocks like your accuracy through volume. So like I said, all AKs just are not feeling great. Also, by the time you have all the attachments to fully modify this thing, you know, your level 4 traders, it costs a lot. I mean, we're talking like 250,000 rubles on top of the weapon to fully modify this weapon, and it's still surprisingly bouncy. I'm talking with complete meta attachments. So for those reasons, I can't rank it too high. You also can't get your hands on like super high-end 5.45 ammunition too consistently unless you're looting those spots like on woods or on custom stronghold where those boxes tend to spawn a lot. All right, up next we have the AK-101. So this is actually just like all these other variations of the AK, but this one shoots 5.56, and I'm gonna go ahead and put this one in B tier. It does feel better than its predecessors over here. They're shooting different calibers, and there's not a whole lot else to say about this weapon. It's just shooting 5.56. One notable feature about this weapon that you might actually go ahead and utilize is it has the highest muzzle velocity of any 5.56 rifle in the game. So you're shooting fully automatic with an extremely high muzzle velocity. So if you want to take this somewhere where you need like a little bit of range, like woods, but you still want to have something like a rifle and the accuracy of something like 5.56, I mean, that ammunition in real life is designed to fly extremely fast and be accurate at a long range. Well, there you go. The AK-101 for some reason has the highest muzzle velocity of all 5.56, and it's not by a small metric. It's by like an extra 200 meters a second. So give it a try sometime if you want to. It's a good rifle. I would actually say because of that niche use, I would put it above the AK-74, because although the AK-74 still is like one of the best automatic 5.45s, it doesn't really have a niche use like that AK-101 does. All right, up next is the AK-102. It's just a 5.56 stubby version or carbine version of the last rifle we talked about. It feels a little uninspiring, and I would say it actually ranks pretty low in the C tier category. Once again, it's just like the same problem the AK-103 had, or 104 had down here, where it just indexes relatively easy, and yeah, I don't know, you're just not gaining anything for a shorter barrel realistically. It's a bit hard to tell these weapons apart in this tier list, so you're just gonna have to go based on what I'm telling you about, but you can tell based off the magazines what kind of cartridge it is, and obviously how long the weapon is. Speaking of these weapons, you'll see some of these weapons, like we have 4 different AKMs here. There are hidden stats in the game, and by all intents and purposes, I'll just go ahead and show you guys the best weapon from this category. So just the AKM actually has the best hidden stats in this category. So each weapon, even though these are all AKMs with like basically different parts on them, like dovetails or like a wire stock, etc., They will accept certain parts, like for example, these aren't going to take the same stock, the wire stock versus the wooden stock. However, they do actually have different base hidden stats. So your weapons have stats that you can click on and view all their stats right away. And those are modifiers on top of the hidden stats. So for example, all the 545 AKs are not made the same for this reason. And another great example is the baby AKs. So you'll see that I recommended in my level 2, my best level 2 trader weapons, the 74 UB. That was because it actually has higher hidden stats than its predecessors over here. So by all intents and means, I'm just going to show you guys the one with the best hidden stats. So you have the best variation of that rifle already. Rank it, and then obviously the ones below it are gonna sit below it, so we don't have to waste too much of your guys' time. Hopefully that makes sense. I just want to apologize, this is actually an AK-74M, not an AK-101, so we'll go ahead and swap these out. It actually sits in the right place already though, so everything I said about the AK-101 is true. I just misidentified the magazine right there. But the AK-74M is largely the same as the AK-74N. It's just gonna go ahead and take a different stock. AK-74M actually has slightly better hidden stats, but you can put slightly better parts on the AK-74N. So honestly, I would just use whichever one you think is cooler. They come out to be almost identical stat-wise with meta parts on them. If you're not running meta parts, then the AK-74M right here with the foldable polymer stock will be your better option early on. So it's just going to go ahead and rank higher. But at that ultimate end game, it's just whatever you want to use. We're going to go ahead and skip this AK right here, and then here we have the AKM. So it's 7.62. It's going to be one of your first fully automatic 7.62 rifles. It feels pretty good at a low level, like traders levels 1 to 2. I wouldn't really want to use it past then. You do have to use it for like a shoreline task, but it doesn't feel too good with a lot of mods attached to it. I would use it at a low level by all means, and it would sit in like a low C tier, but after you get to like level 3 traders, you're not really going to want to be using this weapon outside of those quests. Here we'll see all sorts of different variations of these AKs, but they're just flat out worse than ones we talked about already, so we're going to go ahead and move on. You can really tell them apart. They have like different denotions based on if they have like a folding stock or if they have like a dovetail mount, etc. Good rule of thumb is generally like the foldable wire stocks and the dovetails are actually going to net you like a worse result than like the standard models stat wise, but you can always revisit this list. But the next weapon we're going to go ahead and see are the baby AK. So we're just going to skip past the S74U, the US, and the UN. We're going to go straight to the UB here. The UB has the best hidden stats in the game. You can actually get it relatively early for cheap on a barter, or you can get it from 70k from Prapper. It feels really good. You're getting a suppressed rifle. It's really good indoors, like things like dorms and stuff. So if you want to bring an automatic 545 somewhere tight quarters, it really shines like, let's say, customs and factory. Then by all means, the 74 UB is one of your best weapons you're going to get early on. I would go ahead and rank it even like low B tier. And you guys will remember that it sat quite high in the best level 2 traders weapons video. If you haven't seen that, by the way, I'll have that linked in the top right now if you're around that level 2 traders. But yeah, by all means, if you're going somewhere tight quarters, reserve bunker, customs, you're going in the dorm, somewhere you don't want to have muzzle flash, you want to be a little bit quiet, you don't want your rifle indexing, this weapon will really shine in those scenarios. Up next, we have the APB. This one actually has the wire stock. It just has a better recoil control, and it's suppressed versus the APS right here. I tried using it. It is horrific. I'll see if I can get a clip on screen right now of using it. It is probably one of the squirreliest weapons in the game right now. Like, you cannot hit shit with this thing. Like, you could not hit someone 5 feet away from you. It just squirrels out of control so fast. It's kind of a bummer because it is a pretty cool weapon, and it does feel like we're kind of getting to a meta where secondary weapons are actually feeling a little more viable than they have been historically. But I just truly feel like if my life was in danger, I had a guy 5 feet in front of me, it would just be down to sheer luck if that bullet clipped him in the face or not. Like, no input on my end would actually make a difference. This is truly the definition of accuracy through volume. And the issue is you only have a 20 round magazine. So I just would not recommend this weapon if you're doing maybe, let's say, like Shooter Born in Heaven, for example. I wouldn't use this as a secondary. Okay, up next is the AS-12. Now, this one's probably gonna get me in some hot water. The AS-12 is kind of dog shit, guys. I'm gonna be honest. So if you guys didn't realize in this wipe, and you've played historically past wipes, we know that the AS-12, it's a 50 caliber, right? It's a Russian 50 caliber. PS12B puts people down to 1 tap to the chest, sometimes with level 5 armor, all the time with level 4 armor. It smokes people to the head. It is a phenomenal round. This is fully automatic. You can also shoot it semi. You can run it suppressed. It's pretty short. It's all around. It sounds like a phenomenal weapon. Well, if you don't know, there was actually a change with the latest patch in Escape from Tarkov where bullets are traveling slower. If you've played previous wipes, you may have noticed that when you're shooting at targets 50-60 meters, it feels like you actually need to go ahead and lead them more, and you're not crazy. It's because muzzle velocity, it stayed the same, but bullets are traveling slower now. I think they went ahead and made this change either because the bullet velocity in the game wasn't realistic and wasn't actually matching what it was saying it was, or they wanted to lower the muzzle velocity to deal with the recoil changes. People are getting less shots on target because they don't want people to instantly die, right? I mean, even though they want it to be a realistic game, they want people to have fun, right? If someone's fully automatic mowing you down at 100 meters, you're probably not gonna be having a lot of fun. Well, to go full circle with this, the AS-12 only shoots at around 300 meters a second right now. I'm talking when you were shooting at a scav strafing to the side at 50 meters, you were going to need to lead these shots. So if you can get super close and personal, by all means, the AS-12, if you connect with their chest, it's phenomenal. It's great at hunting down Killa if you have to do that quest. But when you're getting this close with this rifle, it only has 20 round magazines and it still has a decent amount of kick. I mean, it's definitely manageable, but it has some kick to it. When it's in that fully automatic mode and you're getting close to people, you're going to spend the entire magazine and be stuck in a long reload animation. It just isn't shining like it used to. It used to be really good at popping shots like 50 meters, popping a little burst, 2 shots on someone's chest at 50 meters and instantly dropping them like you were like some sort of tank, right? For this reason, I gotta say the AS-12, seriously, it's like D tier, low C tier. There's not a whole lot to say about the AS-12. It's just not in a good state. All right, the AS-VAL. So the AS-VAL, it's an end game weapon, like a tier 3, tier 4 weapon, and it is one of the highest DPSs in the game. It shoots insanely fast, and it shoots absolute bricks out of it, right? You're gonna put people down really fast with this weapon. It does need a fair bit of mods. The only real issue the AS-VAL has is the magazines cost a tremendous amount. Same with the ammunition. The ammunition is sort of a pain in the ass to go ahead and get your hands on as well. And one other issue this weapon really struggles with is actually dealing with squads. By the time you shot around 2 30-round magazines at this weapon, if you shot them back to back, the barrel is going to be scorching hot and you're going to be due for a jam very often. I mean, without fail, on that third magazine, you are going to have a jam. So if you don't have great trigger discipline, which is going to be hard to have with a weapon that shoots this fast, right? It's going to be hard not to overheat this weapon, and it takes a while for it to cool off, and that's just kind of the downside of the integrated suppressor. However, if you get the drop on anyone, you're taking on 1 or 2 targets, this is effectively going to be the best weapon for the job to put people down as fast as possible. If it wasn't for the smaller magazines and the issue with jamming all the time, I mean, this weapon by all means jams significantly more than any other weapon in the game. This would obviously be an S tier weapon. All right, I actually had to go ahead and zoom out and grab the VSS all the way at the bottom here. So the game actually designates the VSS as a DMR. So when you're using it, you're going to be leveling your DMR skill, versus this is actually going to be considered an assault rifle. However, the VSS has better hidden stats. Early on, you're going to want to be utilizing the VSS. It'll actually be less squirrely than the AS-VAL. And then later on, once you've gotten enough levels in assault rifle, let's say around like level 15, level 20 in assault rifle, you're going to swap over to VSS. So these are interchangeable depending on how late or early on into wipe they are. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people just think the AS-VAL is better simply because you can change out the stock on it, and this one has the base wooden stock always on it. But that is the truth, now you know. All right, up next, the AUG. The AUG is easily going to be an S tier weapon, and make sure you use the A3 variation. It actually has the best hidden stats in the game. So why the AUG? It is super cheap. I mean, you can slot on a new dust cover on it, slot on an optic of choice and a suppressor, all for around 60,000 rubles. I mean, if you go for a super expensive optic, then by all means, it'll be more expensive than that. And then you have a phenomenal 5.56 rifle. It has a very high rate of fire, 725 rounds per minute. You can get this at level 2 traders. The suppressor, I mean, to run a suppressor on this is only around 20,000 rubles. That in and of itself is crazy. You run some 855 on this. Whenever you need to do some quests, do some money runs, the AUG by all means is one of the best budget weapons in the game right now, and you can use this at high levels as well. I mean, you can go ahead and put 5, 6, 8, 1 on this thing, and it's going to be just as effective. Sure, at level 3, level 4 traders, you probably have access to more things, you have access to more money, and you're going to want to just spice it up, change it up. But this is one of the best budget weapons in the game right now, and if you haven't given the AUG a try, I would strongly suggest you try it. I'm not a big fan of the built-in optics, but if you can get used to those, then by all means, it's going to be even cheaper to run. So one of the best budget weapons in the game right now. All right, we're going to talk about both the AVT and the SVT, just one rifle at the same time, and they kind of sit in the same spot, and that would be A tier. So the SVT, you're going to have a little more range. You're going to be using it effectively as a DMR. You can put people down just slightly further. The AVT, fully automatic, much closer. They fit almost the exact same niche. You can get a little closer with one, a little bit farther with the other. Right now, you can buy LPS in the flea market. It's not very expensive, and it puts people down super fast. This weapon doesn't need to be modded at all. You do need the sniper variation of the SVT if you want to get an optic on it. But by all means, this weapon is great. You just slap it on. You don't need to modify it at all. It puts people down in 1 to 2 shots. It's a phenomenal weapon. It's a little bit too strong, saying it's like a World War II weapon, in my opinion, but historically they've had a really hard time balancing World War II weapons. I mean, when they added the Mosin, they had to rework the entire health system just to make it viable. All right, this might actually get me in some hot water, and let me explain my stance on this. This is the AXMC. It's a bolt action rifle. With AP ammunition, effectively you're going to kill everyone to the chest in one hit. With FMJ ammunition, you can kill everyone level 4 armor, sometimes level 5 armor. Now, why did I put it in S tier? It's a bolt action rifle. If you've been playing the game for a long time, I mean, historically, bolt action rifles have not been very strong, and snipers in general have not been very strong escape from Tarkov. Now, I'm playing with Operator Drewski a lot, and seriously only running a sniper rifle. And I've been sticking back and actually putting shots on target with snipers at range, and they feel very powerful. Now, the reason why this is S tier is you can put people down to the chest with this rifle. It's one shot, one kill, and if you're in a squad-on-squad engagements, I don't know if you guys have realized, in the latest patch of Escape from Tarkov, there's a lot more squads than there used to be. It's kind of going back to like the original Tarkov, like 2017, 2018. We're not just seeing solos and duos, we're seeing a lot of big 4 to 5 man squads. In these engagements where people are actually squaring up and taking peeks on each other, these snipers are feeling better and better. With DMRs, you have a hard time getting that second shot on target right away if it's just a slim peek. With an assault rifle, you don't have necessarily the high enough accuracy, and when you shoot fully automatic, you really need to get lucky with your balloon to go ahead and catch that kill. Whereas with something like ACMX, you can just get a shot on the chest when they peek, or God forbid the head, and they are out of the game. With a buff to sidearms in this game, with just pulling them out faster, ADSing faster, snipers have also gotten a hidden buff in that regard. So I really do believe that ACMX is an S tier weapon if used in a squad correctly. Now, if you're like some stretch res labs player trying to run around this thing, obviously it's more like a D tier rifle, right? But in that circumstance, it truly is S tier. If you guys want to see me using like a 50 caliber sniper loadout in a tactical squad with Operator Drewski and the boys, let me know in the comments down below. All right, up next we have the M3 Super Benelli. Now, this is one of the best shotguns in the game. And even with that, I'm going to say this thing, I mean, I'll put it in B tier just so if you guys need to do like, let's say, setup or silent caliber, this is your boy. But shotguns this wipe do not feel good. All right, Magnum buckshot has a ton of recoil, and you're just praying to RNG. Has a ton of bloom, a ton of recoil. It does not feel skill based whatsoever. Flechette is super hard to get your hands on, super expensive. I mean, it's going for 5,000 rubles a round. The average player does not want to pay that for a single shotgun shell, right? AP20s you have to craft. They do still hit pretty hard, but plates stomp them more than they used to, so they're still nerfed right there. All the other slugs are pretty underwhelming. The only other round that really should be mentioned is Piranha. Basically like cheap flechette. That's what you're going to want to use for silent caliber and for setup more likely than not. The Benelli is pretty moddable. It has a big tube. You can slap it in semi or in pump. I would only recommend running it in pump if you're actually going to go ahead and utilize, let's say, slugs. It will tighten up the MOA a little bit, but I wouldn't bother doing that with anything like Flechette or Piranha. But by all intents and purposes, it's just a B tier rifle. Up next, we have the M9. It's just a D tier. You can go ahead and use it to get your pistol kills early on factory. No big deal. We have the Stubby, D tier. The other small revolver, also D tier. The ammunition is just super underwhelming. When you get the ammunition that actually makes this much more viable, you have access to much better sidearms, and it's really just not worth it. Maybe later on, if they make the ammunition more accessible for the 357 variation, then this will actually go up. But next we have the RPD and the RPDN. So we'll just talk about the RPDN. The RPDN, it's the same weapon. It just has access to an optic. You can go ahead and put a dovetail optic on it. And then with that dovetail, you can get a Picatinny rail on the side of it and go ahead and get a laser. It's a really fun weapon. I would say it's like B tier. No, it's probably C tier, honestly. It's just too heavy. You can't really run it on any map. Because by the time you have one box mag, the gun, and then the box mag in your vest, you're going to be wearing a lot of heavy equipment. You're going to be pretty overweight, probably like 35 to 40 kilos. You're not going to really want to run this on anything other than like factory or customs. It'll just slow you down so much. And with this update, if you guys don't know, they put a lot more emphasis on the stats. So weight determines like how much noise you're going to be making, as well as how slow it is to ADS. You'll see when you ADS this weapon, shoulder this weapon, it crosses your screen 2 or 3 different times just to get the reticle on screen. I mean, you're spending like 3 seconds, 2 seconds to get that reticle on screen. It really has an issue with that. It's great at hip firing, but there also has been nerfs to hip fire this wipe. So for those reasons, I just have to put it in C tier, but by all means, it is a really fun rifle to use. Okay, SA-58, S tier. I'm gonna put it high S tier as well, top of the S tier. As soon as you can get this, I mean, level 3 traders, level 4 traders. This is one of my best level 3 traders build. This weapon absolutely dominates. Fully automatic, 308, relatively low recoil. You can suppress it. You can run with a blast mitigation. You can run long barrel, short barrel. You can modify this to whatever need you have, like going, let's say, factory, or you just want to take it to something like customs. You can really modify this weapon for exactly what you need. Nothing else really needs to be said about this gun. Fully automatic 308, it puts people down in like 2 shots. The same can be said with the 7.62 MDR. Phenomenal rifle, kind of a pain in the ass to unlock, but if you're doing your quests, you'll get them once you've done enough Peacekeeper quests. It got a hidden buff this patch, well, 2 hidden buffs really. It got a ton of recoil compensation because it was pretty unusable in the last patch of Escape from Tarkov. So the recoil on this weapon is phenomenal right now, and it also takes the 6.8 Sig Spear high capacity magazine. So it used to have 20 round magazines, is the biggest magazine you could run this thing, but now it has 25 round magazines, which is just a massive buff. It's only 5 rounds, but the amount of times like the second person you were shooting at with the MDR got away and was injured and you just had to do like a long reload because you spent every single bullet was quite high. Now you don't run into that issue nearly as much. You don't have to put yourself in situations you're like Call of Duty reloading. The 5.56 MDR, I mean, by all means, it's a good budget weapon early on, but it's really just a C tier weapon. The DVL. So as far as snipers go, I'm gonna say DVL is B tier. If you're shooter-borne tasks, if you have money, etc., this is probably the weapon you're going to want to go ahead and be using because of the integrated suppressor. It's super light, and like I said, weight is really important now for ADSing and arm stamina, and it has very high ergonomics, and it's insanely quiet. So I would recommend using the DVL with the integrated suppressor. I wouldn't recommend running it loud, like the format we see on screen right now, for doing those shooter-borne kills, etc. I have been using it like in that squad format like I mentioned, and sure, you can go ahead and tap heads with it if they peek their heads, but it just does not shine like something like the AXMC, where if you just like click on them, they're basically dead to rights. All right, the G36. So there's only one variation of the G36 in the game, and we're gonna go ahead and put this at high B tier. This is my best level 2 trader's weapon. The burst format of this weapon, it feels really, really good. It's going to save you ammunition, but you're also going to have accuracy through volume much higher than that of a semi-automatic weapon. You have the full auto to back up on. If you guys used the G36 from that video, you'll realize that it is a phenomenal weapon, and you can modify it all sorts of ways. I truly think like the stubby variation, which is suppressor, is one of the best ways to run it. I tried running it really big, all the recoil reducing attachments, and 40 round magazines, and it was just way too heavy. The ADS was way too slow. It just didn't feel snappy and nice like the carbine G36 does on that burst fire. But that's just my opinion. We have a bunch of Glocks down here, so we'll just quickly talk about the Glock 17, like the semi-automatic variation. It feels pretty good right now. I've been using it as a backup with the DVL. You can modify it really nicely. It does cost a lot of money, so for that reason, maybe we have to go ahead and put this down in C tier. I'm talking like 150,000 rubles to fully modify it out, even after doing the barter and like trying to be wise with your money. But I mean, you're shooting AP 6.3 through it. It is an absolute laser beam, and it's been a phenomenal sidearm, probably one of the best sidearms I recommend so far. There is the automatic variation, and it is somewhat usable. I believe this is the automatic variation here. I think you see the switch on the side of it right there. I don't know, it does feel a little squirrely, a little bit like the APS. It's basically like a better version of the APS, and I would say that the semi-automatic version is a good amount better than the automatic version, even though we have them side by side right here. You may not like it as much. I mean, if you're in trouble, and let's say you're just not as good, you don't use DMRs very often, you're not going to click heads very well, then by all means, the automatic version might be better for you. Up next is the HK416. So this feels really good. It was in my best level 3 traders video. The only issue is once you get to level 4 traders, you can't buy black tip ammunition anymore. And I feel like that would really make this weapon shine. You actually have to do a quest called Your Car Needs a Service to unlock the craft for black tip 55A1. And with that ammunition, then sure, I would say this weapon is by all means S tier. You can only craft 90 bullets every 6 hours. So, I mean, I would just keep that craft going once you actually have that unlocked, and then use the HK when you want to use the HK, or, your 5.56 of choice with that ammunition. However, that's what's stopping this weapon from making it all the way into the S tier. Okay, up next is the G28. So historically, the SR25, the G28, and the RSASS felt identical. That is not the case anymore. The G28 feels a good amount better than the SR25, the RFB, etc. Although it's kind of a pain in the ass to get your hands on. I get them all the time from the scav junk box. I would say use them if you get them. You can only buy them after you've done Shooterborn in Heaven. So you're going to be getting these from like marked rooms, from your scav junk box, etc. But I wouldn't recommend like going out of your way and bartering for it. Otherwise, you need to go ahead and do the barter with like the blue key card, which at the time of recording this video is like 800,000 rubles. This is not worth 800,000 rubles. This is like A tier if you get your hands on it. If you're going out of your way to do like one of those ridiculous trades or doing Shooterborn to unlock it, just for this weapon, it would rank much lower in my opinion. All right, the MP5. The MP5 is a really good early game SMG. I'm gonna put it in low B tier. You just spray at people's faces with PST ammunition and you're gonna put people down. There's not much else to say about it. It doesn't really need many mods. There's a decent amount of mods for the weapon, but it just doesn't need it. The MP7, you want to make sure you're using the tan variation of this MP7. I believe it's the MP7A2, and that's because you can put a foregrip of choice on it versus this built-in foregrip. This weapon is phenomenal. I'm ranking this in high A tier. I would actually say S tier. Now, the only issue is you can't get AP ammunition very consistently with the MP7, but the FMJ ammunition just puts people down. I mean, you're just aiming at people's heads with this, and you're going to annihilate them instantly. I mean, I've been wiping 4 to 5 mins with the MP7 and the P90 on labs, as well as the reserve bunker pretty consistently, just because of the rate of the fire and how effective headshots are this wipe. The VSK, it's basically like a budget AS-VAL. I would say this weapon would be pretty good, but a lot of the attachments that you want for this weapon, like let's say the suppressor, are tied behind Prapor level 4. I feel like that was a mistake. This is, I think, should be like a level 2 or level 3 weapon in my opinion. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the C tier. If you can get your hands on the suppressor and the magazines from the flea market, you are going to be paying a little bit more. I think the magazines this time are going to like 20k each. Sure, you're going to be getting this weapon back a lot and the magazines a lot. So if you're willing to pay like that initial investment and that overhead of buying all the magazines, then by all means, I think early on, this is a pretty good weapon. I mean, you can shoot SP5 out of it and you're going to enjoy it. It's going to sit somewhere around like the 74 UB territory. However, it is going to be like a little weird to be using it at a low level without access to traders. And obviously with these weapons, it's a bit frustrating when I recommend a weapon and then, like, for example, the SA-58, the magazines at the time recording the tier 3 weapons video were very cheap and they've gone up quite a bit because a lot of people wanted to use that, understandably, right? So go ahead and check the prices. If the prices are low, then the VSK could be pretty good early on. If they're high, then the VSK sits quite low, like low C tier. So just keep in mind, it fluctuates based on what happens with the flea market. The Keter, the Clint, I'm just gonna go ahead and get the suppressed version. This thing is an absolute laser beam at a low level. It's crazy that this actually ranks higher than a lot of these rifles, but seriously, early on, I think like small caliber, pistol caliber SMGs are your friend. You can kill people to the legs very easily, to the face very easily. It's not worth going ahead and trying to hit people in the chest, even early on. I mean, if you start day 1 of wipe, everyone's running level 4 plates for the most part, right? But all these rifles and the ammunition you get access to really struggle with level 3 plates even, right? So these SMGs really do shine early on. It's weird putting them in B tier. I mean, an MP5 and a Clin over something like an MDR or an AKM, it feels a little out of place. It's probably not as big of a discrepancy as like a whole tier system. Like these are obviously low in B tier and these are higher on C tier, right? MDR should be a little bit more like here as well. But yeah, just the current changes to the plate system, and then when you get actual like armor piercing rifle ammunition, it just makes it a bit weird. And I would recommend the high rate of fire and high flesh damage to put people down, especially if you're getting into this wipe a little bit late. Like let's say if you're under level 20 right now, then this really is true now. If you want this full tier list, by the way, go to my Twitch and type !weapon tier list, one word, on screen right now, and I'll have this fully uploaded for you to reference later on. So the KS-23 got nerfed pretty hard last wipe. It's been nerfed a ton, honestly. I shot some guy in the leg with it a bunch and he managed to live. That was my only experience with it. He wasn't even moving. It just doesn't feel that good this wipe. I like kind of vowed to quit using it. I'm a massive KS-23 enjoyer. It's fun to just go ahead and bring it out. Sometimes I like to just bring it on labs with a flashbang round, flash into a room and then kill people. But the KS-23 is just, its glory days are over. It's ranking quite low. I might even say it's like a high D tier rifle at the time of recording this video. Okay, the RFB. This is a phenomenal budget 308 option. I mean, you can even put BCP FMJ in this, or once you've done revisions, Lighthouse. You get M80s with tier 3 traders. You can get Peacekeeper 3 at a relatively low level. I don't want to say too low, but if you're targeting your quests, you're gonna actually get M80 pretty early on. And for that reason, the RFB sits quite high. I would say it's actually like high B tier, like right behind the G36. If you get M8 level 2, then it would skyrocket. But as a budget weapon, actually no, I'm going with A tier. I've changed my mind. I would sit it right next to the G28. It's super cheap. Once you get like that M80, like I said, it's very effective. You don't need to modify it too much. And much like the AUG, it's going to be one of your best budget weapons to run this wipe. If you like DMRs, if you like 308, give the RFB a try. Just a little hidden tip. You can actually go ahead and use one of those rifle scopes that has a Picatinny on the side and then slot a laser on the side of it, so you still get that laser or flashlight combination, so you can blind people up close, or you have the tighter hip fire if you want. But that's a little bit of a hidden tech with the RFB that'll make it a little bit better for you guys. So the M1A, if you've been watching my channel for a long time, I used to be the #1 M1A fan, and I gotta say guys, the changes to weight when you fully modify an M1A, it is extremely heavy. Unfortunately, in the past, a lot of the 308s felt very similar, and the M1A felt very unique. You could shoot it extremely fast. It felt phenomenal, close range, mid range, and it felt really like a high rate of fire DMR. With the changes to recoil, the M1A does not feel that good, guys. I mean, I am one of the biggest M1A fans, and I gotta say, it's just a C tier rifle. It costs a decent amount to go ahead and modify. If you are an M1A fan, go ahead and utilize that mechanic barter with the blue cigarettes. You can get 17 blue cigarettes. Last time I checked on flea market, blue cigarettes were only like 4 to 5k, so you can get it pretty cheap and use that as your baseline. But the M1A is not feeling that good right now. When you go ahead and do test drive part 1, you guys will probably realize that it doesn't feel that good. Obviously, that M1A is not modified too well, but the SAS chassis and the fully modified M1A is just too heavy, man. Up next, we have the 1911. You can use it for your pistol kills. I don't think it's very good. It has a smaller magazine than the M9, a little bit more kick, and you're not really getting a whole lot of using 45 at a low level. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this at the bottom of D tier. Not a whole lot else to say about this. Here we have another M9. We'll just skip past that. Okay, up next we have the M4. So early on, I would say, I mean, this made it to my best level 2 traders weapons. It's very viable, level 3 and level 4. It can be expensive to modify at level 4. But overall, I'm going to say the M4 is in the S tier. The only reason it outclasses the HK is even though the HK feels phenomenal, I think for the average player, that people have been using the M4 for many wipes now, and the HK hasn't been viable for like, I don't know, 2-3 years. It's just going to feel more comfortable in people's hands. Although it's only a 50 rate of fire difference between these two rifles, it feels like the HK spews through its ammunition so much faster than the M4. With 30 round magazines, you only get 2 seconds of trigger time with the HK, which is just crazy. And I think that the general person is going to like the M4 more than the HK. Alright, up next, 870. It's a pump action shotgun you get very early on. It's like D tier above some of these bad pistols. Wouldn't really recommend it. Super budget. If you're new to the game, you just have it in your stash. Go run it in factory, lose it, get some PvP. Not a whole lot else to say. The M700. Pretty solid sniper rifle. As far as sniper rifles go, comparing it against the other sniper rifles, not so much against the rifles it's up against. It's pretty decent. I'll put it in C tier because it can be pretty expensive to mob. You can get it with a lot of ergonomics, really tight MOA. You'll like it, but it is quite expensive. I would still recommend the integrated DVL while doing your shooterborne heaven kills. Okay, the semi-automatic 50 caliber. This thing is like S tier. It's really good. It's really hard to unlock. Maybe not really hard, but it's a time sink to unlock. You have to kill Sturman a whole lot to unlock this. And if you like to use DMRs, it is a phenomenal weapon. It is extremely heavy, so you need to be cautious of when you're actually ADSing with this thing, but it is phenomenal. I mean, semi-automatic 50 caliber. I don't really need to say a whole lot less. It is a squad-based weapon, though. You can use it solo on woods by all means, or those long ranges, but you're not going to want to like bring this to something like reserve solo for, you know, most people wouldn't want to. And if you're a solo player, then both these sniper rifles would rank quite a bit lower. The Mutant, you guys are not going to like this, guys, but the Mutant just does not feel good this wipe. I'll put it in B tier, but it's so bouncy, and just, I mean, it's been such a phenomenal weapon. It's such a cool weapon as well, you know, like an AR-15, like it's like an AR-15 AKM-72. It's just an awesome weapon. I mean, it's been king of the meta for a couple years now, and it's just, they didn't give it any love with the recoil changes. You can run it stubby with the blast mitigation much more effectively now, which is like its shining grace or whatever the saying is. The long barrel with the suppressor like you historically would run just does not feel inspiring at all. If you love the Mutant, one of your favorite weapons, go ahead and try stubby with a blast mitigation. Little hidden tech, if you use a LaRue riser and then like your hollow, you're actually gonna like rise your hollow, obviously because it's on a riser, but you're gonna pull it away from the flash, and you're really only moving it by like ½ an inch to an inch. But you're gonna have significantly less muzzle flash, and you're not gonna be blinding yourself. So if you guys have tried the blast mitigation in the past and didn't like the muzzle flash, that will help you tremendously. The Mosin, I don't think the Mosin is good at all personally. It's just not worth it to modify. If you just like the Mosin, maybe you're like a gun nut and you like the Mosin, then by all means use it. But I'm gonna say it's a D tier rifle in my opinion. There's the sniper variation versus like the variation that doesn't let you put a scope on it. We're not even gonna talk about that version. It's just not worth it. Don't use it. The 155, a shotgun. Historically, this has been a phenomenal rifle to shoot things like buckshot out of. I guess it's not a rifle. Are shotguns rifles actually? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Are shotguns rifles? Am I an idiot? I don't know. I'm not like the #1 gun expert in the world or anything. I don't pretend to be. But anyways, the 155 was really nice to shoot things like piranha, flechette, buckshot out of. This wipe, it's just not feeling that good though. You can use it instead of the M3 Super Benelli for your quest setup, but I just don't think it's very good anymore. And I'm a #1 shotgun fan. Like, if you guys remember last wipe, I would just run this with flechette all the time because it was a ton of fun to use. It wasn't the best, but it was very viable if you used it correctly, right? The double barrel, Here's some hidden tech for the double barrel and the sawed off. If you guys are once again doing your setup task, is you can go ahead and put something like buckshot in a 155 or a 133 or an M3 Super Benelli, and then carry a double barrel on your back with slugs in it, like 50 BMG slugs, AP-20 slugs. In this way, if you spot someone at a distance, maybe someone's crabbing, holding still, you can pull out your slugs, headshot them, so you're still getting that shotgun kill with the MP series shotguns, and you're gonna have like that viability up close. I see a lot of people struggling, like they go into one raid and find themselves in a mid-range engagement, so they're like, shit, I died, let me bring slugs next raid. Then they go into dorms, obviously they die up close, like shit, let me bring buckshot next raid. It's a vicious cycle. If you're doing that quest, go ahead and put like a double barrel on your back. But although I put the double barrel pretty high up here, it's kind of crazy. You can put AP-20s in it. Just make sure you have it in like single tap. The double tap just shoots the second round like straight up in the air. I put it next to these for the sake of this video, but overall you're probably not going to want to be using the double barrel shotgun in general in the game. Same with the sawed off, although the sawed off has like a pretty interesting niche use where you can use it as a secondary with AP-20s, and it's kind of insanely viable. Like if you want to pair it with really any weapon, if you want to have a secondary in AP-20s and just one tap someone to the chest trying to push you, you truly can use this, and I have done it in the past. It's pretty hilarious. Is it like the meta? By no means, no. Here we have the break action with the 7.62x54. I just wouldn't recommend using it. It's a pretty cool weapon. I would like to imagine more break actions in the game, or maybe like a lever action rifle. That would definitely fit a new niche in the game. And by all means, let me know what weapons you guys want to see. Maybe like a Desert Eagle would be another really cool weapon. They would shake up the meta in this game. But yeah, those are some ideas I have for some new weapons. 133 is just a pump action shotgun. Just put it in the bottom of D2. Don't think too much about it. 153 sits right around the 155. What I'd recommend if you want to use like Piranha or Buckshot, put it in the 155. If you want to use slugs, put it in the 153. They kind of shine in those regards better than using them vice versa. The Grotch, pretty terrible pistol, not even worth mentioning. MP5, we already talked about it, didn't we? If I'm not mistaken, we had like the stubby MP5. We'll just put the full MP5 on there just to make it a little bit easier for you to consume. Up next is the MP9. It feels alright. I'm gonna put it in like high D tier. Even though I said cheap SMGs feel pretty good, I just think the MP5 really outclasses it, and there's not a whole lot of reason to use the MP9. Although almost all these SMGs have no recoil. I mean, effectively, it is going to be like right here. I just think the MP5 is better bang for your buck, so I would recommend using that. But I mean, you could pick your fancy. What's next? The MPX. The MPX feels very good. You could even use this in max shares with AP 6.3. This is probably an A tier rifle, probably right around the RFB range. You really don't need to modify this at all, although you can put all sorts of mods on this. I would recommend you build it for ergo, put a suppressor on it, and then shoot some AP 6.3 out of it. And you're gonna have a laser beam. You're gonna shoot people in the throat, shoot people in the face, and it's gonna be very effective. My only thing is, we haven't got to P90 yet, but I feel like the MP7, the ammunition is easy to get your hands on. You don't need to modify it as much. Although you can run this MPX bone stock, like whenever a weapon like the MPX, you have so many modding options. You always want to mod it. You're kind of just wasting money on it right now. I just think the MP7 performs better than the MPX overall, so we have that ranked higher. It's a stronger caliber as well. Okay, the SKS, guys. The SKS is one of the best budget weapons you can be using right now, and I'm gonna go ahead and put it. I would actually want to say I want to put it in high A tier, just because it's such a phenomenal budget weapon. If you saw my SKS build, my level 2 trader's weapon build, you can run that build for around 100k, including the cost of the weapon, sometimes less than that. And you can go ahead and shoot PP rounds from the flea market. You're just gonna be tapping people. I like to run it loud. It's just a phenomenal budget weapon. If you want to do like an annoying task where you die a lot, use the RFB, use the SKS, use the AUG. They're all such phenomenal budget weapons. If you have unlimited money in the game, then by all means the RFB, the SKS, and the AUG would all rank like a whole category lower. But I mean, some of you guys that instead of doing money runs, running these budget weapons could save you a lot of money long term, so you're not doing those money runs. So that's why I like to rank those high in those regards, and I just like to add that caveat. The revolver shotgun, kind of a funny weapon, but by all means not very good. The P226, once again, just a really uninspiring pistol. We can go ahead later on and go ahead and organize each of these in their own respective categories, especially towards the top, right? Because we haven't necessarily compared them one-to-one in each category. However, you get the general gist of where they're sitting right now. The P90, okay, the P90 is phenomenal. It's S tier, and I believe it's above the MP7. You get the 50-round magazines. It's just a great rifle. SS190 is now buyable. It's the black tip ammunition, and you cannot say the same about AP with the MP7. The P90 is such a cool weapon. The only issue this weapon has is with the big magazines, they have an awful pack modifier on it, so unloading and loading ammunition in the P90 can take forever, which means you're going to want to bring a lot of magazines. I tend to bring 5 full magazines of SS190, and that can feel terrible if you just go in and die to like the first player you see. I mean, it's happened to all of us. You spend 10 minutes kitting up to die in the first 30 seconds of the raid. That can feel terrible when you die with all that high tier ammunition. So that's the only problem this gun has, but overall it's better than the MP7. It's a phenomenal rifle. I'm gonna go ahead and put it above the Blackout as well. The P90 is my favorite SMG of this wipe, and I would strongly suggest you guys give it a try. You can even use it at a low level with, if you want to go ahead and put a long barrel on it or just the normal barrel, and the L191 ammunition. It's effectively the same as AP63. You can buy way more of it. You don't have to camp the trader reset for it. Give the P90 a try, guys. You're gonna love it, trust me. PB just a suppressed 9x18, not much to say. Okay, the PKM and the PKP are actually crazy good, which I can't believe I'm saying out of my own. I can't believe I'm saying out of my own mouth. Okay, they're crazy good compared to where they used to be. Like, they used to be unusable trash. By all means, if you get a PKP, make sure you save it for Gunsmith 25. If you get another one, save it for a friend as well, because they're kind of a pain in the ass to get. You can only get these from Kaban. But if you want to go have some fun, you have a PKM in your stash, go ahead and try this weapon. I mean, just for sheer fun value, it's just going to be like a Big Brother RD. It is a lot of fun to use. We haven't talked too much fun in this tier list, but if you get your hands on this, you got to give it a try. Make sure you run it in like a squad format. If you run it solo, it's not going to feel that phenomenal, but yeah, it is in an interesting spot. It's actually usable, fully automatic, 7.62x54. You can hear the smile on my face. It's a very fun rifle to use right now. The Saiga 9, and this should be the fully automatic variation. Very good early on SMG. Once again, just aim at people's heads. It's fairly modifiable at an early level. You're gonna like it a lot while just getting your quests up. These handguns, once again, Makarov. I forget what the name of this thing is. It's like the PL15. It's just not good. I remember it's terrible. The PPSH is actually one of the better SMGs you can be using at a low level. Once again, its rate of fire is insane. It can't jam. It can only jam based off the ammunition. It can't have like a failure to feed, which is an interesting thing about this weapon. And you can smoke people to legs, you can smoke people to head. On my journeys to level 1 through 15, I actually had all of my deaths to this weapon. Just someone up close in the door sprayed at me, hit me in the jaw and killed me, or hit me in the throat and killed me. So PPSH, once again, accuracy and volume. And this looks very weird, but by all means, I mean, some of these rifles early on, like I said, are struggling this wipe just due to the fact that they don't get like high-end ammunition to level 4 chairs. I mean 5.56, you're not getting 5.6A1 until level 4 Peacekeeper, and that's your 5.56 that defeats level 4 plates. But level 1s have level 4 plates, you know what I'm saying? So that's why we have this weird discrepancy. If you can get your hands on better ammunition, then all the rifles go up. And if they make any changes to rifle ammunition, then all the rifles go up and the SMGs would go down. But I just want to keep giving that caveat because this looks very historically backwards to where Tarkov has been always in the past, where rifles would be on top. The RD feels like shit. It's kind of like the Mutant. I would say it's like B tier. It's worse than the Mutant, probably worse than the G36, but if you like the RD, you use it a lot less wipe, you might want to still use it for like some nostalgia. The RSASS. The RSASS, like I was saying, all of the 308 DMRs are feeling a little bit different than they have historically. I would say the RSASS outclasses the G28. It's also easy to get. You should have to do some Peacekeeper quests, and then you can just actually buy it. It is a pretty expensive rifle, but once again, you're going to be getting it in the same format, so you get the G28. So marked rooms from that scav junk box. You'll actually get your hands on a lot of RSASs. I've had the best luck with running it long with a blast mitigation, but you can once again just run it with a suppressor. But this has been my favorite 308 semi-automatic DMR of the wipe. It's just a bit pricey. Here we have the RSH-12. This is a phenomenal handgun, one of the best secondaries. It has a dual action mode, so you can shoot it like almost like semi-automatic. It shoots PS12Bs, which is the same as the AS-12. It puts people down phenomenally fast. I mean, almost everyone, you can just tab them in the chest and it'll kill them, tab them in the head, it'll kill them. It's a great rifle. You're going to like it a lot. If you want to run a handgun, this is the handgun that I think a lot of you guys would really enjoy it. It's very unique, and we're talking about like maybe adding the Desert Eagle earlier. I think this kind of fills a similar niche, so it's a very fun weapon to have. Just a little hidden tech. If you go ahead and put it in like single action, you're going to have tighter MOA, so if you're going to be like trying to pop someone at like 30 meters, 40 meters, you're going to go ahead and put it in single action, but I would keep it in dual action if you have to like whip it out really quickly and protect yourself. Just so you know, I see a lot of streamers trying to put like a fucking 6x rifle optic on this thing, and then sure they put their crosshair on people, but this thing does not have like a tight MOA. So don't try and Chris Kyle people from 200 meters with this thing. It won't work. The PS12V, I mean, it's not an aerodynamic round at all. It flies really slow. Same with the AS-12. It's not made for sniping people. It's up close, shoot them in the chest, and you're gonna put them down. All right. The long SAG. Now we talked about the stubby SAG. This has a slightly better MOA, but it's a little bit heavier and has worse ergonomics. I'm trying to see where we put that SAG earlier. I think I put it in A tier, right? Yeah, I would just say this is in B tier. If you get your hands on one of these and use these, it's actually cheaper than the stubby. That's really not the case in the game for most weapons. Almost the stubby is almost always cheaper, but the stubby truly is better. I would recommend you use the stubby instead of the full length. All right, the Saiga 12. I really did not like this weapon at all. I fully built one out. I put a drum magazine on it, and it just did not feel good at all. Probably one of the worst shotguns I've used. Shotguns right now, I think we're gonna see a patch where they buff up shotguns, buff up the ammunition. I think they overly nerfed all the shotguns in this patch. Just do the changes with the armor plates. If they were too strong, they would have been like king. People would have been getting hit by flechette at 50 meters and being killed, and it would have been really frustrating. So I think they overly nerfed all the shotguns as well as the ammunition. But at the time recording this, the Saiga just does not feel good. It doesn't feel good unmodded, doesn't feel good modded. The 20 round drum magazines are awesome, but the weapon just feels like shit. This is the single, the semi-automatic variation of the Saiga 9. I wouldn't recommend using this. I would just use the fully automatic version. Here we have the 308 Scar. Fully automatic 308 weapons are feeling pretty good, but the Scar is probably one of the worst ones. I would say it's around C tier, like under the RPD. It's a pretty heavy weapon. You only can use 20 round magazines, and it has a ton of kick, kind of like the AKs. Like, it's just bouncy. It kicks left to right really hard compared to all the other 308s, and it's just hard to put shots on target combined with like smaller magazines. It weighs a lot. It just doesn't feel very good. You wouldn't think it'd be that much different than the MDR or the FAL, but it feels a lot worse. Sig Spear, this weapon is S tier. It's phenomenal. This thing is basically shooting 308s in an extremely high rate of fire. It's very easy to manage. The only issue is it's pretty expensive. You need to do light keeper tasks. Like, you need to be like level 50 to unlock this thing. The only other way to get it is by killing the goons. I got one. Killing the rogues. I got another one doing that. And then finding them in the marked rooms is your best bets, or buying on the flea market for around 500k. The issue is you need max traders to go ahead and like buy all the attachments for it, as people are selling it on the flea market with all the attachments ripped off. So it's a very expensive weapon to run, around 1,000,000 rubles, I would say, to run. And then make sure you have the 25 round magazines. You can stock up on them ahead of time, so you only buy 4 or reset. And but all the ammunition for this gun is good. The FMJ puts people down level 4 armor easily and has super high damage, and the hybrid is just phenomenal. This is basically the mutant of this wipe, and it's gonna be your favorite rifle to get your hands on. The SR2M is really good, actually. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in like high B tier. I'm gonna put it in low A tier. The SR2M is phenomenal. It's a great budget weapon. Once again, the new, I believe it's 74 UN. Or it might be 47 NU ammo. I don't know. Maybe I'm having a little dyslexia over here. It's a great budget round. You're gonna have a great time using this on things like custom, Streets of Tarkov. You know, just going building to building. Try out the SR2M if you haven't already. Phenomenal budget weapon and a great SMG that shoots a unique caliber. SR25. So SR25 historically has been like a very budget-friendly 308 semi-automatic DMR, and didn't feel very different than the RSASS at all, but now it does feel quite a bit different. The RSASS and the G28 feel quite a bit better than the SR25. It's not by like heaps, but it's a similar situation to the Scar, where it just does feel worse than these other 308s, and I would recommend them instead. It's still a little bit cheaper, but I mean, most people that are running 308 DMRs aren't on a budget usually to begin with, so I'm gonna go ahead and just throw it in like high B tier. And you'll see a lot of the meta weapons that were meta in like the previous patch, like SR25, Mutant, RD, are all around the B tier. They didn't really get any love with these patches, and they just kind of wanted to shake up the meta. I mean, it's been a long time since we've had the MDR, the SFDA in the meta, or the HK has been viable, for example. So it's an interesting change of pace, but let's continue to grab more rifles from down here. We talked about the SKS already. Maybe we have a little bit. Next time I won't have like these repeats in here, because you know, this version of the SKS just doesn't have a dovetail on. This is just a normal SKS versus the one I showed you earlier is an OP-SKS. I could see this just list being kind of confusing for new players. This is my first time doing a tier list on Escape from Tarkov weapons, so if you have any suggestions, then by all means, I'm all ears. The Shrimp pistol shoots a really nice caliber. It sits somewhere kind of like the 5.7. I would say it's like a C tier sidearm, but once again, it's just a pistol, so there's not a whole lot to say about it. The STM9 is a semi-automatic 9mm, but I think it's actually phenomenal once you get your hands on AP 9mm. You can just use this and you won't shoot through ammo too much and just tap those heads. You're not going to have very much muzzle velocity. It's pretty low muzzle velocity, but if you like DMRs and you're on a short range map and you want to stay quiet, unironically, the STM9 with AP ammunition is a really unique build. It sounds crazy, I know. If you are not a fan of hitting headshots, do not use this gun, because it's going to be like headshot based. Same with the SAG, right? But yeah, if you can hit those headshots, it's actually a really fun little build to use. Feels like something in like a secret mission, if you will, like you're playing a 007 game, like GoldenEye or something. SV98, just a D tier sniper rifle. There's a trade, not trade, but you can just buy one from Jaeger that's fairly modified that you can go ahead and knock out some shooter tasks with pretty easily, but not a whole lot to say about this. Yeah, I don't know. It feels like the Mosin, really. Not a whole lot different. SVD, so I put this in my best level 3 trader weapons. You can build this on a budget pretty easily, and for that reason, and it's shooting at 7.62x54 pretty effectively. I want to put it in the A tier. Realistically, the AVT should go below it, and then this should go right here. Honestly, looking at the back of this, I think the AVT and the SVT need to sit more in like the mid B tier. My mistake for putting in the wrong place. Sometimes as we get more weapons on the board here, it just seems like, oh, well, why are we putting this here? You know what I mean? So my mistake. So the T5000, I feel like this is on par with the DVL when doing your shooterborne tasks, or if you just want to run a sniper rifle in general. I would just recommend you go ahead and throw a suppressor on it. Its muzzle velocity is phenomenal, so if you're truly going for like those 200 meter, 300 meter shots, you're on dome, you're on lighthouse, and you're really trying to snipe some really far kills, that muzzle velocity will certainly come in handy. It's a really nice rifle overall, but if you're going to get a little bit closer, a little more personal, you're going to want a higher ergo, lighter weight, and the DVL will really shine. I guess I wouldn't put them side by side. I would say this is like on par with the M700, right? The M700 would just be like a more expensive, worse version of the integrated suppressed DVL, and T5000 would be a higher muzzle velocity variation for like some long range sniping. TAS, just a troll weapon, D tier. TT, once again, it's just a pretty standard handgun. I'm just gonna throw it in D tier, really small magazines. TX15 is basically like a better ADAR, so what I want you guys to look out for is go ahead and look on the flea market for these. You can just even favorite them, and sometimes people will list these for 70k with all these meta attachments on them. Now, there used to be a buy from a mechanic where you could buy a M4 lower receiver, and then you just strap all these parts on an M4 lower receiver. But if you have some unmodded M4s in your stash, by all means, you can then take all of these attachments and build basically a meta M4 for like 70k. People, just new players, get these and they don't know better. However, the TX15 is really good by itself if you like to tap heads. Once again, it's one of the best weapons in the game for tapping heads. The ergonomics are insane. It feels kind of like the SAG. Honestly, I don't know if I'd put it that high. Also, the mini SAG, we're going to put it lower in A tier. Maybe we'll put it high B tier, actually. And then we'll put the TX somewhere around it as well. Yeah, I like this kind of format a little bit more here. But the TX15, great head tapper by all means. So I'm 45. It's a great budget weapon. I would say it's probably like high C tier. Once you get your hands on 45 AP, I would say maybe it's B tier. But yeah, it's a phenomenal rifle. It's a head tapper. With APs, it can be a chest tapper. The rate of fire is quite low, but the flesh damage on these rounds is super high. Give this a try. It's really nice to use, honestly. I've used it here and there. It's a good budget weapon as well. Okay, so the Chris Vector 9mm and 45mm. I'm pretty sure the 45 is a black one, if I'm not mistaken. The 45 actually has a higher rate of fire than the 9mm, and with 45 AP, this weapon, it just absolutely shreds. It's easily like an A tier. It sits somewhere around like the MP7 P90 range. The only issue with this is it shoots small magazines. Now, it does have a caveat. It has a burst fire format, just like the G36 and the AK-12. That makes it pretty unique with the SMG format, and I've personally been using the 45 variation in burst and with a full auto backup. If it's had higher capacity magazines, then the fall would be insane. But I think you're a little bit better off with the MP7 and the P90 just due to the fact that they have higher capacity magazines. With the 9mm variation, you have 50 round magazines, but you're using AP 6.3, which right now is super hard to get your hands on. The fact of the matter, you have to like sit there and camp the trader just to get your hands on it makes it kind of underwhelming. But I would say it's a direct upgrade to the MPX. Yeah, just higher rate of fire, 50 round drums. It's phenomenal. Give it a try. Here we have the VPO-215. I mean, it's a good budget weapon early on, like maybe bottom of C tier, but not a whole lot to say about it. You know, once you get to past level 2 traders, you're not really going to be using that rifle whatsoever. Then we have the VPO-209. This can be a really good budget option for doing some of your sniper tasks. You can also put AP ammunition, AP366, which is a pretty strong rifle round that you can go ahead and buy on the flea market early on. The reason why I'm putting it in D tier is just, it's not the best. I mean, with the MOA on this weapon is actually phenomenal. The only issue is the AP ammo can be a little less accurate. It shouldn't be D tier, actually. It's like a pretty good budget option for doing any of your sniper kills. I would put it in like low C tier. Just make sure you're buying that AP ammunition off the flea market. Otherwise, it drastically falls. The 137, it's basically like an AKM but semi-automatic. It's like an AR-15 but for Russians. It's like the civilian version, semi-automatic. Not a whole lot to say. I mean, it's a budget weapon early on. Say it's like high D tier. You'd probably be better off just using the AKM with the full auto function. The VPO 209, this actually shoots the AP rounds that the what's it called? I was just talking about the bolt action right here. I was just talking about shoots. Yeah, it's decent. I don't know. It feels alright. It's nice to shoot those AP rounds. If you're shooting APs out of it, it can be like a C tier rifle, but it's not a whole lot to say about it. Oh, here's the AK-12 right here. It's a B. Oh, did I say this was an RPK earlier? Oh my god, that's an AK-12. Oh, man. I think next time I'm going to upload all these images with the names of the weapons next to the weapons as well. I mean, some of them can be a little bit hard to remember their names. Like, for example, all these different AK variations are just a one number variation, or these VPO dashes. I probably got a handful of these names wrong. Feel free to correct me in the comments down below. It is hard to have all these memorized. What I said about the weapons is true. I think the only one that I actually mistook was this for an RPK. We can actually bring the RPK back up. So RPK probably is right around, yeah, like low B tier. It's better than the other. I would say, yeah, it's around the other AKs, right around here. And the AK-12 is probably the best 545 AK, just due to the rate of fire and the burst fire function in it. I wish it would get some more attachments, but there's actually not very many modifications and attachments for it right now in the real world. It's still a relatively new rifle, and it just got adopted into the Russian military not that long ago. But yeah, this is the tier list. You'll see we have some weapons we already talked about left down here. If you disagree with me where I put everything, then by all means let me know in the comments down below. It is very weird and feels kind of ass backwards to have a lot of these like early game rifles lower than SMGs, but if you're in those early stages already, I would seriously recommend trying these SMGs. The reason why they're so nice is you're gonna be able to kill Chads by shooting them in the legs if they're not looking, or spraying at their face, and just the accuracy through volume, the massive amount of rounds coming their way, it's gonna be better than all these assault rifles down here. And then also with the recoil changes, your shots in the bloom on them are gonna be much tighter, so you're gonna have a much tighter spread. You're more likely to catch them in the face. If you run into player scavs, I mean, the flesh damage on these rounds will put down the player scavs, so they're less of a threat to you. Overall, the SMGs just feel really good at a low level. Sure, you can use some of these rifles later on when you unlock some higher tier ammunition, but almost all the rifles I put down here, you can't really get like a 545 or 556 armor piercing ammunition on the flea market at all. Like, the best you're going to be finding is like PS and 855. So for that reason, that's why all these rifles rank so low. I don't know. I feel it's so weird like explaining myself, just because historically this has really never been the case where these early game rifles just don't outshine SMGs and stuff. I really do believe that SMGs are better right now, guys. And like low tier DMRs, like things like the SAG and stuff like that, the RFB, they're gonna really help carry you. But by all means, thank you for watching this video. We talked a lot about ammunition in this video and like how it influences the actual weapon. So if you want to go ahead and see what ammunition you should be using at every single level, I'll have that on screen right now. And I'll catch you guys all in Discord and on the live stream.